orange shirt.
Do you ever find your, just your opinion, you said that if you weren't writing about anime, what do you think you'd be writing about?
Manga? Oh, he said if you weren't writing about anime, what would you be writing about? My answer is manga.
He also asked whether we found aspects of our jobs repetitive, and yes, going through like the 9 millionth terrible AMV or look what I bought or whatever on YouTube gets very repetitive sometimes.
I feel like I've attended Japanese high school at this point because I've gone to the opening ceremony so many times, and then the cultural festival and the sports festival and like graduation and just every Christmas, New Year's, like the same plot over and over again. It's really grating. It has kind of taken over my life because I have to watch quite so many hours of it. And to the point where other people, I'm really behind on American live action television. People are just like, have you seen 30 Rock? And I'm like, no. I know I should. When?
I was going to say, in terms of repetition and just getting weary of stuff, when you first break through as a critic, you start receiving free stuff. You get screeners, you get swag, you get press kits. It's wonderful.
At first, it's really cool.
After about, I'd say after about 6 months of crap coming at 3 or 4 days a week, it's just like you get a box of DVDs. It's just like
yeah. Then one day you open up the box and there's dice looking at you.
Yeah, I mean.
DICE.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, I remember dice.
I think you said that's Brian Hansen.
Yeah. Anyway, I mean, the thing is, I can tell you right now that for a long time I've just received a box of DVDs every week, and it was just like, oh god. I'm at the point where Funimation regularly asks me, just like, so do you want to be on our regular screener list? And I'm like, no, don't send me anything unless I specifically ask you for it. Just gonna sit
one
in the
time
corner.
DMP sent me like a box of yaoi. My husband was like tripping over it for the next 2 years. I don't think I ever read to the bottom of that.
Yeah, no, seriously, I actually got scripted into a yaoi blog with a friend of mine, well before I was doing it professionally, and DMP loved us and sent us box after box after box. And by the time, like, it got to the point where I would groan every time I saw, like, DMP as the return mailing.
Hey, you haven't lived until you've been on the Comics One mailing list.
Oh boy. Oh man. Were they the ones doing those Korean series?
Yeah, well, no, they did Hong Kong comics, which were absolutely, I don't know if anyone reads Hong Kong comics. My impression of them after reading several of their releases was they're absolutely beautiful and completely incomprehensible.
Let's see, somebody in the back. Black jacket, watch, yeah, you.
Yes. Is N.Y.N News Network looking to licensing beyond simulcasting, and wouldn't simulcasting be conflict of interest if you review him?
Well, we can't answer the technical aspect of that. I don't know what Justin and Chris might be looking into in terms of licensing beyond simulcasting. The question was whether we were interested in licensing beyond simulcasting. I assume it means like DVDs and stuff. I don't know anything about that. As for whether it's a conflict of interest for us to simulcast because we do reviews, somebody has to. Was that you who asked that at the Crunchyroll panel too?
No, it's been on. It was a poll, wasn't it? Like really recently.
We did put up a poll asking whether our users wanted us actually to review things that were also simulcasting.
I guess that kind of affects me a lot since I'm probably going to be watching the streaming stuff, and because they don't really edit my reviews or hold back my opinion in any way. Like I'm allowed to write like as negative a review as I want, and so because there's no restriction and my column is like editorial, I don't think it's a conflict of interest because I'm also watching stuff from like other streaming sites as well, and there's nothing in it for me to like say that, oh, this show just because our site is streaming it is better one way or another. And I don't know, do we just do, like another question you may not be able to answer, do we just do like exclusive kind of streaming rights for certain shows, or you know how like sometimes the show will be like both on Hulu and on Crunchyroll?
These are just our current simulcasts are exclusive.
Oh, okay.
At least for now.
Yeah.
As far as I know.
As far as the writing about stuff that we're simulcasting, I respect anyone else who wants to do that. I won't do it. I didn't bring this up earlier, but for about 2 years I worked on spec for Geneon, developing content for their websites, and during that period I did not review a single Geneon title for any publication, which in a lot of ways sucked because they were releasing a lot of good stuff at that point, including, I mean, the sites that I built for them were for Vandred, were for Gatekeepers, and Nia Under 7 was my first one, and that's still my favorite. It's still one of my favorite shows, actually. Big old soft spot for that one. But yeah, it's an interesting subject. I mean, I can tell you that looking back, I think when New Type USA first launched, there was one thing that really just made me write it off, and that was seeing a review of an ADV Films title written by an ADV Films employee.
But
positive, of course.
I mean, Zach says not.
And it was a positive review of a bad show. It's called the Samurai.
I'm waiting to see what the results of the poll are. I feel pretty confident in my ability to not care whether A.N.N is simulcasting the show or not, but that all kind of moot if the users don't trust my review regardless of what I think of the show. So
Yeah, I think there's a large foundation of trust. If the readers trust me to be honest about something, I don't think that's going to break that. Like, I'm still going to be on. Like, they'll be able to tell, I think.
Yeah.
See through my thin veil.
Red Platt. We currently have an intern at the moment, and I know we've had one shortly before that who just left around Otakon. I don't know. I do not know if we are currently seeking anything, but we actually have a link at the bottom of the page to our employment status stuff. That's probably the more up-to-date place to look. Because I don't know. Oh, don't forget to
People aren't getting enough stuff. If you ask the question, come in and get some stuff.
We have an awful lot of t-shirts. Come get a t-shirt.
We have a lot of freaking t-shirts.
Gentlemen in white?
Yeah.
This is a question for all of you and Justin and Zach. Were there any of you involved by how poorly Scott Pilgrim did such a great
Yes. Oh, sorry. Okay, this question is, are any of us bummed by how poorly Scott Pilgrim did? I totally am, and I really love the comic, and I super loved that movie. I thought it was the funniest thing that I'd seen in like 10 years. Like, I laughed my face off, and I'm really thrilled actually here at this convention to see like several Scott Pilgrim cosplayers, because it really did get like the attention it deserved. And I was so frustrated. Like, I told all my friends to see it, and some of them were like, I don't know, I've heard some bad things. I'm like, no! But then I sound like a crazy person, because I have like a fanatical devotion. Like, then I get the crazy eye, and I'm like, everyone needs to see it, and then no one believes me. So.
Well, as someone who didn't really like the comic too much, I actually enjoyed the movie, and I think for as much as the movie was promoted, that's really the surprising thing about why it didn't do as well as people thought it would do.
Those movies never do. Snakes on a Plane, everybody was talking about it. Nobody went to see that
Well,
thing.
Snakes on the Plane had a strong opening night, and
Yes.
once that happened, that was the event. If you weren't part of that, you missed it.
I don't know.
As for Scott Pilgrim, I mean, I think it's unfortunate it didn't do better. I think it's, on the same note, it's unfortunate that Speed Racer didn't do better. I think in a lot of ways they're
It
similar.
was actually okay, I think. It broke even eventually in Europe.
That's in the foreign market.
Yeah, well, I mean, the thing about Scott Pilgrim, though, what confused me a bit is all the surprise over the fact that it didn't do well, because I looked up and I thought, there's no way this thing's going to be a success out of the gate. I think it's going to be a cult hit. I think it eventually will be very successful, but it's going to take a few years. And at that point, we'll see the direct-to-video sequel starring people who just kind of look like Michael Cera.
Fella who's standing.
Hi. Well, you just mentioned that New Type USA had probably a biased review of a ADV title, which of course, ADV published New Type USA. I'm just wondering, do you have any solid information if like New Type Japan does that, with their own Kadokawa titles?
Well, the Japanese press basically for anime. I'm sorry, his question was, if I understand correctly, if New Type Japan has a similar angle or a bias when it comes to their advertising and stuff, and the relationship between the Japanese press, especially for geek fields like video games and manga and anime, and the publishers, it's really very close and influential, especially compared to the relatively independent status that you have here in America. So I would not be surprised if it's anything similar to what goes on with Famitsu, this Japanese game magazine, and the publishers there will basically tell them what scores to give the games, and they want to keep their advertisers happy. So, yeah.
That was Weekly Famitsu? I'm in an issue of Weekly Famitsu. When Otaku USA did some kind of crossover thing. So they published a picture of my Nazca cosplay and like my top 5 anime and video games.
Yeah. Essentially, if you look at magazines like New Type Japan and Anime Age, and I don't know if there's still a third, Anime, yeah. If you look at those, and if you look at the new season of shows, and you look at those magazines, and you don't see any mention of certain shows, those are the shows that are the absolute worst, or the shows that, at the very least, aren't buying any advertising space. For the most part, the Japanese press only writes positive things or promotional things. If it's really bad or really controversial, you're just not going to see it in print. except for a few small, like kind of outriding blogs, magazines, which I really hope pick up more steam. I think that kind of practice is terrible and cowardly. Like I said, I come from an indie like music critic background. I started doing critical writing underneath a guy who, would review new releases from like Capitol Records. He'd get an angry, would trash stuff that was bad. He'd get an angry call from his rep, tearing him apart and saying, it's just like, we're not buying ads anymore from you. We're not giving you any more service. And it'd be like, yeah, you know what, kiss my ass. And a few months later, the Capitol Records folks, there'd be, there'd be turnover, there'd be a new rep, or they'd just get nostalgic for our coverage.
So really, what you saw in New Type USA, the whole generally positive feeling towards the anime, that was pretty much what you'd see in the Japanese version of things.
And I have to say, that does happen to a certain extent in print. I used to write for Sci-Fi Magazine. I wrote their anime column, and like a B or a C grade in print there was more like a D or an F grade, compared to what I'd write online. I mean, really, my editor there, Scott Edelman, would just tell me, just like, just don't completely, absolutely savage something if it's that bad. We'll find something else to cover. Obviously, if you find something bad, write it off, give it a C or a C minus grade, and we can run that. But it's a lot of it is just the editors will be like, try to stay a little positive.
It does remind me of something, Roland Keltz, who's like an author of, I think, a couple of books, he mentioned how Japanese journalism is really different, that a Japanese press conference is pre-scripted to the point where the person at the press conference knows the questions the reporters are going to ask because they've been submitted in advance. Everyone asks them, they have their answers written out in advance, and then they get kind of a written copy of the answers, so it's not really the spontaneous thing like you would get elsewhere.
Yeah, and it really can be kind of shocking when you're working with a Japanese company and you're in the American press. Like when I was at Anime Insider, we would get notices from companies, they wanted to see the entire article that we were going to run before we go to press, and that's really something that's unheard of when you
stories I can tell.
Yeah, like an American company doing that, that's unheard of. So
it's like communism.
We had to explain to them that, we really don't do that.
And doing press conferences with Japanese guests, especially musical guests, always fun. They don't answer much. All right.
Gentlemen, you call it gentlemen in the sure.
I'm just wondering
sorry.
if. Oh.
No, you're fine. Come on.
Okay.
We'll get to everybody.
All right. If e-publishing for manga ever becomes really viable, do you see A.N.N. possibly, the site possibly getting involved in that in the same way that you're involved in streaming video?
Well, that's a question that's really better put to Chris and Justin. Unfortunately, they're not here right now.
I didn't know.
But, if...
Yeah. I'd say from a completely personal, not official perspective, I'd say yes, that's absolutely going to happen. I think I'd say yes to both, actually. I think to a certain extent, e-publishing for manga is going to become viable, and I think when that does happen, A.N.N. will probably get involved. I'm speaking for myself, not for the site.
Oh, yeah.
All right, this time, please rise.
Sorry about that.
Is there a series on your queue you really want to put up to the latest you can because you really don't want to review it?
The question is there anything that is in our to-do list to review that we really want to put off because we don't want to review it?
I kind of do that sometimes, where the one time, I've tried to stagger shelf life to make it so there's one shelf-worthy and perishable and rental. That never works out. I'm often surprised by the shows or the ratings, so I haven't quite found a way to get it so there's one of each in each column. But I do kind of put off things I don't want to watch. But inevitably I keep reaching the bottom of the box of screeners, and so I have to watch it and pretty quickly, within a month or two. So the turnover is so fast that I can only put it off for so long. And I don't really. It's only a month or two before I get around to watching it.
Well, I prefer to get the pain out as quickly as possible. If I have something that I know is really bad, I just want to watch it right away.
Or I watch it opposite something good that week, so I'll watch oh, I know I'm going to love this, so I'm going to watch this, and then I'll also watch this other painful looking one.